Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Team Tuesday this week with Takunda Noha. Hey Takunda, welcome back.
Hey Vasco, thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. So we'll talk about teams in a minute. We'll talk about, how sometimes teams can create their own problems. But before we dive into that, Takunda, do share with us, what's the book that most influenced you in your career as a Scrum Master?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Let me think about that one. So I like the book by James Autry. It's called The Servant Leader. It really stuck with me because, transitioning from being a traditional project manager, PMP, PMBOK, kind of a PM, to becoming a Scrum Master really was a big mindset shift for me. And when I was going through that, when I was trying to find my feet and understand what this new role as a Scrum Master means for me, that Servant Leadership book really, really helped me a lot. One of the key things I remember actually from the book is a strong emphasis on your emotional intelligence. And he emphasizes this because he's trying to help you to create better connections with the people that you're working with. As a Scrum Master, as a servant leader, you have to influence without having power, right? Without having organizational power. And so how do you get people to do what you would like them to do when you can't make them do it, right? You have to have way better personal skills. And emotional intelligence is a key to unlocking that. If I can't sympathize with you, if I can't empathize with you, if I can't understand what you are going through so I can connect with you, that connection is always going to be missing. And you won't be able to establish that relationship that will allow you to influence them. People generally don't listen to people they don't trust or they don't connect to. But if you can make that connection somehow, then people will trust you enough to at least consider. They may not do it, but they'll at least consider what you are saying. So for me, emotional intelligence is very, very important. And that book, The Servant Leader by James Autry, is perfect for that.
Absolutely. And yesterday was a great story of that empathy that Takunda shared with us. So if you haven't heard that, please go and listen to the Monday episode. And this also reminds me of a book that doesn't get mentioned enough here on the podcast, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. So those two books together, I'm sure, would be a great asset for any Scrum Master, especially those transitioning from product or project management, roles. But anyone wanting to understand what is the core of being a servant leader and someone who takes others into account, because that's what the servant leader does. Servant leader is not a servant dictator, is a servant leader,
yes,
right?
Absolutely,
Leads people, but leading means that others have to choose to follow.
Oh, there's a whole discussion you just opened up there, Vasco. Servant dictatorship. It's a very interesting topic we can go down sometime later.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of servant leaders out there who confuse servant leadership with servant dictatorship. But let's not go there yet. We might go in a bit. But now we need to talk about teams and how sometimes they develop these behaviors or patterns that ultimately lead to problems. And we need to identify those very early on, so that we know what we're getting into and we can react to it. So Takunda, share one of those stories with us. Tell us a little bit about the team so that we know, what's the context, what kind of project it is, and then walk us through how those small behaviors or patterns developed over time and then led to problems.
Absolutely. So a while back, I started working with a team that supported a human resources department. So this is the development team that develops a platform that the HR team uses for onboarding, filling in your personal information, booking leave, that sort of thing, right? So you can imagine a portal like that for the company and the development team that sits behind that. So I'm joining this team. I'm their Scrum Master. And I notice, but when I get onboarded onto the team, the sort of team lead from a business perspective introduces me and gives me a history of the team, and he lays out to me what he's I guess what he would like to see the team improving on and what he believes the team is lacking. And from the sounds of things, I couldn't really tell what he was really concerned about. It looked like the team on paper was doing fantastic, right? By that I mean they're doing this. They understand the concepts of Scrum very well. They understand the Agile mindset. They have every ceremony they do it. They do their retrospectives. They plan together. And so I couldn't understand what the problem was until I finally got to sit with the team and I started working with them. And then I realized something, that they had the workings of a Scrum team on paper, but in practice, they were very ill-disciplined, right? So they would
give us an example. What did that look like?
Oh, yeah. So they would have these recurring problems, for example, of missed sprint goals. Right? They will set up 5-6 user stories for the sprint, articulate a sprint goal, and then when we finish the sprint, they've only achieved maybe 1 or 2 of those stories. The rest haven't even been started, right? And when we retrospect on that, you find that they can identify what they did wrong. Happy days. We then make an action item to say, this is how we're going to improve on this. This is how we're going to fix it. We go into the next iteration. We again come out with having missed our sprint goal. Then we do that again. We go through our retrospective. We think again, what did we do wrong? And then I realized something, that the reason why we are unable to actually stick to our resolutions, why we keep having recurring problems, is the team was very ill-disciplined. By ill-disciplined, I mean, you know what you have to do, right? But somehow you don't take it seriously. You don't take each other seriously. There is no real consequence to not sticking to what you said you will do. So whether we do it, whether we're not, as long as from the surface perspective, we look like we're doing all the right things, it's fine. And I noticed that when you let that ill discipline continue unchecked and without holding them accountable to what they've actually said they will be doing, it grows, it manifests itself. No one ends up feeling that there's any importance in living up to the expectations that they've set up, right? When someone doesn't show up on time for a session, when someone doesn't come to a meeting and they accepted the meeting, when basically this ill-disciplined behavior is taking place, no one seems to really find anything wrong with it.
Nobody pointed it out, right?
No one points it out. No one gets upset about it. It was
accepted even.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, okay, so the so-and-so is not here. Should we continue? Should we not? Oh, okay, fine. Let's just cancel the meeting and we'll carry on, right? It's just, we had the backlog refinement on the calendar. So, if anyone wants to check, we will say we did it. But what did you actually get out of that session? Nothing. We just canceled.
So this reminds me, there's the book, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, and there's different layers of performance. And the top of the pyramid is inattention to results. And then the fourth, so the second from the top is avoidance of accountability. And it sounds that even though the team might, they might trust each other and they might trust their stakeholders, they had an avoidance of accountability and not a lot of attention to results.
No, not completely not. And especially that of avoidance of conflict, right? Because you notice it that this individual is not doing as they should be, right? We were supposed to be having our test scripts by now. We're supposed to be having our test data ready by now, but they just haven't done it. And we know it's not right, but no one is really willing to call him out on it. And so we just move on and hopefully nothing bad happens to us. You have to be very careful as a Scrum Master that everything else may look good. The camaraderie, the togetherness, there is no infighting, the team may look very peaceful and harmonious on the surface, but these hard to read dysfunctions quickly become a problem from a delivery and an overall efficiency and value delivery perspective. We're not just there to be a great looking team, we're there to be a great delivery team as well.
Absolutely. And that really reminds me of this idea that if everything seems to be going all right, it's probably not going all right, because we need to see that there are somebody gets angry when something doesn't get delivered or the quality isn't up to par. We need to see some conflict, not conflict in the sense of creating hatred or demonstrating lack of trust. Those can also happen, but conflict in the sense of wanting to build something better, right? We want to see that in the team. And when there is constructive conflict, which is also discussed in the 5 Dysfunctions of a team, then we know that it's not peaceful, but things are getting better.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And when nothing happens, when it feels almost like a dead ocean, then you have to ask, what is going on here? Because a live team, a team that is alive, needs to feel alive, right?
Some healthy conflict, holding each other accountable, making sure that we're upping our game from sprint to sprint, and we're not just becoming plateaued and monotonous. So yes, I completely agree with you. It's a very difficult one to, especially you as a Scrum Master, if you are aware of such hidden issues, you may just also fit into the Dead Sea way of doing things.
And we might get even comfortable with that, right? Like there's no conflict, exactly. Everything is fine. All the meetings are on the calendar, right?
I'm okay. I can just go along with it. There's no problem.
Yeah, and it does take a lot of self-accountability for us as Scrum Masters to actually get out of that peaceful, comfortable, even environment and go like, hey, wait a minute. I don't see anyone getting angry or frustrated. What is going on here? Those are two completely normal emotions in a team that wants to be excellent at what they do.
Yes. Yeah, no, you cannot accept that of yourself, and you mustn't accept that of others as well.
Yeah, great story. Thank you for sharing that, Takunda.
No problem.
Tuesday is Team Day here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. But tomorrow we talk about something that goes beyond the work we do with the teams. We will talk about how to lead change and what our guests have learned from leading and participating in change programs during their career. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.